Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So, today, leading up to Stranger Things Season 5, I am going to be reviewing all of the seasons of Stranger Things. Starting off with, of course, Season 1 of Stranger Things, starring Millie Bobby Brown, David Harbour, Finn Wolfhard, and Joe Keery. When a young boy vanishes, a small town uncovers a mystery involving secret experiments, terrifying supernatural forces, and one strange little girl. Now, I know I'm late to the Stranger Things party. It was one of those things where, when I heard rumblings of it, but I've never actually, I don't think any single one of my friends have, said to me, you need to check out this show. Because, not to name names, but some people, that I went to school with, just weren't into movies or shows where kids were the focus. So I would have to kind of discover movies and shows on my own, and my brother got into it for a good bit, so I saw not a lot, but I saw a chunk of Season 3, a decent amount. I'll kind of talk about that when I get to Season 3. Yeah, so, I've seen bits and pieces, I know about the whole thing with, I knew, the character of Eleven, and, but I didn't really know, the backstory and stuff with that, so, and also I'm not a big horror guy. I always wanted to get into horror, and there are some horror things that I love. I love the Scream franchise, I love the Babysitter movies, Netflix, and some horror that I just can't get into, the First Blade and Blade Trinity. There are bits and pieces of those that I like, but I can't get into them on the grand scale. I love how the kids are all, literally nerds. We literally see them in the first episode playing Dungeons and Dragons. In, the first 2 minutes of the first episode, the Mr. Fantastic reference that they throw in the first episode is crazy too. I was like, oh my god, they're nerds. And it's cool seeing, these things take place in the 80s, because, in the 80s, it would be exactly what it was like in the 80s, where nerds used to get picked on and stuff. So it's kind of interesting seeing what nerds were treated like back then versus now, where nerds are more accepted. Yeah, you might still get your occasional bullies and stuff, but it's not necessarily because people think that you're a nerd. So that's kind of interesting to me. I love how they're nerds. Which does make sense when the show takes place in the 80s, which when adults watch a show like this, they get reminded of the nostalgia of the 80s. You see all throughout this show, I'm going to be talking about references in this season and also in the previous next few seasons of references that I catch that were either very obvious, where the kids are running into, we'll talk about more when we get to Season 3, but when the kids are running into a theatre and you see the movie poster of the movie that they're seeing, or you see a clip of the movie, you're like, oh my god! That's pretty cool to me. I love how they made it feel very 80s. And yet this show was made in 2016. It's crazy to me. When we meet Eleven for the first time, I was like, what is she doing walking around the bushes barefoot, with a doctor's gown on, and eating someone else's food. Then when she stops the fan and slams and looks at the door where the boys are in Mike's room with Eleven, and I was like, I thought we would have gotten somewhat of an origin story into the powers, with Eleven, but we get through flashbacks, but we see in the same episode that she was actually being tested on, very much like an X-23 or a Weapon X related kind of character. which I thought was very, very interesting. There is lots of funny antics that happen with the boys talking to Eleven and their conversations with each other. Like Dustin thinking that she's deaf, and he claps his hands loudly, and he's like, "Nope, not deaf." I thought that was very, very funny. I do like the relationship that Mike and Eleven develop over the course of the season. I think that that's very, very interesting, in how much Mike understands Eleven in all the episodes, especially the first episode that they meet together. Meet, sorry. I love seeing David Harbour in things now. Of course, the MCU as Red Guardian. I love Red Guardian because of Thunderbolts. I liked him in Black Widow, but I thought he was a bit too over the top in Black Widow. But seeing him play some hard-ass character in this kind of made me go like, oh god, okay, I didn't know that you had this capability of playing someone like dead serious. That kind of shocked me. I was kind of shocked by that, to be honest. I was like, whoa, Jesus. I will say, one character I didn't really like in this season is Lucas. Lucas's character in season 1 especially, he is so negative and he is such a prick of a kid in this whole season. Where he just goes like, Will is dead, or he was there, and he's mean to Eleven, and I just can't stand that character at all in this season. I think he gets better, like, we'll get my thoughts on season 2, but I think he gets better in season 2 and season 3. He becomes more of a likable character, but in this season, he's a dick. I do not like Lucas in this first season whatsoever. I like how this show develops into the horror stuff. It's now just playing on the fact that it's just a kid show, but it's something that everyone can watch because it has the horror stuff and it takes place in the 80s, so the people that grew up in the 80s can watch it and get reminded of the nostalgia and that type of stuff. I do like the mystery throughout the whole season where they're trying to find Will, and because he is lost, so the boys and Hopper are all trying to find Will, but of course the boys are doing it without permission. So I think that what makes this season very interesting is that, like, the boys want to try and find their friend, so they're going to do it even without asking for permission. I think that is very, very interesting. Obviously, everyone's parents don't know that they're looking for Will or finding stuff out in the other seasons, but at least, like, Joyce and Hopper, like, kind of accept the fact that they are helping out and doing all that because all of them are involved because they're all friends with because they've made friendships with Eleven and all that. So, which we'll talk about later, but I do like how they kind of have the interconnectivity of all the characters finally meet up and cross-pass and go like, alright, these multiple stories kind of come into one path. And that's what I like about about all the seasons, is that all of them would have their little side plots, but then they come together to where like all the plots and the characters come together and they finish in the last 2 episodes. You do feel bad for Joyce, how hard she cares about Will, and how much she is trying to find him and bring him home. And even with the facts that she's gone crazy and thinks that everyone won't understand that her son is talking to her through the wall, is so unfortunate. Like, you're like, oh my god, like, Joyce, we believe you because we're the one, because you're kind of you're believing Joyce because, like, no one else is in the room with her or in the house with us, so you're kind of watching what Joyce is dealing with, and then when the other characters going like, oh, Mum, so like when Jonathan goes up to his mum going like, Mum, you're absolutely crazy, it's like, I know I'm crazy. It's like, yes, she is crazy, but that's what she's seen because we saw that happen. So that's what's really, really clever about this, is the interconnectivity of how they do that with those stories. I think that's very, very cool. And you can see everyone has a different plan to try and get Will back home. And when the storylines start to come together in the second to last episode, where the boys meet up with Hopper, Nancy, Joyce, and Jonathan, was a real cool thing to see. Because all of them were working together to bring Will home. Like, at the beginning of the episode, of episode 4, you see how Mike is dealing with the events of episode 3 of 11, not finding Will alive, and then 11 finds Will on the walkie-talkie at the beginning of the episode, and Mike is like, is that? So, and 11 is like, it's Will. Like, that is very, very interesting. I like when Joyce puts the Christmas lights and spray paints the alphabet onto the wall to find Mike. That was such a cool way to for Joyce to find out where he is, because it's like every time that a light flashes, it's like that's the letter to find out where Will is. So it's like she goes like, "Oh, is that you, Mike?" And then it will go. The light will flash on the Y, then the E, then S to go yes. I thought that was so cool. I actually really, really liked that. And like, even though that it's silly that she's interacting with these bloody Christmas lights, you feel attachment to that because you're like, I believe Will is somehow communicating with her through the lights. And it's crazy to me. I actually really, really like that. When they find Will at the end of episode 3, when the episode started to get interesting to me, because unfortunately that is where the episode ended. In episode 3, where it's like, what? And when Joyce comes out and yells at the doctor, and the doctor is actually Sean Levy, who is the director of not the museum movies Real Steel and Deadpool and Wolverine. I was like, that's Sean Levy, what the hell? Like, I was like, what? And when the bully pees himself, normally I would be like, oh my god, typical kids show. Like, they can't bloody write a different joke other than a kid pooping or peeing themselves. It's like how everyone feels like they have them in the Chipmunks movies. Like, I like those movies because I grew up with them, and they're kind of guilty pleasures to me. But like, I do kind of see where people come from, where they are like, you can feel the writers going like, oh, we did a poop and a pee joke in the last one, so let's write a poop and a pee joke for this one, and this one, and this one. And you can kind of feel that in some moments, not episodes, but moments within each episode of this show, especially the bit where 11 is taking down that guy and pees his pants. Like, that's one of those moments where I'm like, okay, I don't really like when movies or shows do that, but that's actually a really funny bit. Especially when 11's like the one mind controlling him and stuff. I think that's very, very funny. And then when 11 once comes back at the end of episode 6, defeats the same bully and saves the day, it's such a hype moment, because you're like, yes, let's do this, because Mike jumps off the cliff, he stops, and you're like, what is going on? And then you see 11 Blade walking around and going like, I mean, it's the most ridiculous dialogue in the world. You kind of go like, I wish you could write this better, because she's like, go. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you probably could have tweaked that a little better, like whether, because I don't think it was Millie Bobby Brown's acting. I think it was just the way that it was written, because it's the weirdest dialogue in the world. Like, I think that, like, because you hear things like go all the time, but it's like You need to sell it. You can't just go like, go. So I think that that's a little bit of a complaint, but that's not a reason for me to take a point off. And when they finally hear Will again, it's such a moment of like, oh, finally, now all they need to do is to get him, to bring him home. Then when Will's father tells Jonathan to take down the Evil Dead poster, it's like, I was like, that is such a typical parent thing. It's like, oh, take down that poster because it's not appropriate. Because my bloody brother is gone and my mum's upset, now it's inappropriate. Like, you're just telling me this now. Like, I've had moments like that where I've had like parents or aunts and uncles or people more higher up than me going like, oh, take that down. It's like, why? Like, I've had those moments, so it's like, I felt, I knew what Jonathan was going through when his father said that. And when Hopper wakes up from his sleep, it reminds me a lot of the Thunderbolt scene with him, where he, like, gets up from the chair and goes, Yelena? It just gave me similar vibes to that Thunderbolt scene. I don't know what it is. It's just so funny to me. I do like Nancy. I think there is something relatable about her character, even though she doesn't have any idea of who she wants to be with, and you can't get that throughout the rest of the season, for the rest of the series, because she starts dating Steve. But throughout the season, she starts building a relationship with Jonathan, and you're like, okay, so who are you going to be with by season 5? Are you going to be with Jonathan or are you going to be with Steve? So that's kind of interesting to me. It's like, who is she going to end up picking when it comes to season 5? Because you see that pointed in season 1. I don't think you could have made Stranger Things into a movie because everyone would have been complaining about there are too many storylines, but with a show it's okay to kind of have multiple storylines depending on how you write it. Which, like, movies, because movies you're only contained to like 2 hours, depending on how long the movie is. Like, normally you're around an hour and 70 minutes or 2 hours or 2 hours and 30 minutes, or if you're the Batman or Endgame, you're around 3 hours, or if you're like a Snyder Cut, you're 4 hours. So it really does depend on how big the story is for how many hours, but because you're like a 12-hour or so long season of a show, you can kind of have a bit more of multiple storylines going on. I think that the second half of the season is where it started to get interesting for me, with the emotional stuff in episode 4, the stuff with Nancy and Jonathan in episode 5, the Mike and Eleven stuff in episode 4. Because the first 3 episodes, to me, I really liked, but I wasn't on the train of this is the best show in the world. I don't know why, but I feel like throughout the whole season, the boys got nowhere. Where every time they ended going somewhere, they have an argument, a fight happens that turns us right back to the beginning, and then it's like, oh, now it's time for us to start again. It's like, what's the point? Like, why would you, like, don't do that. There's bits like that in all the seasons, but like, I think this is the one that stand out to me the most, where it was like, okay, there's a big fight happening, so okay, let's not do that. Let's redo this another time. It's like, you haven't accomplished anything in this. It's ridiculous. I do really like the chase scene between the kids and the guy who created Eleven on the edge of my seat watching that sequence. When the guy is sitting down with Mike's parents, I've been in situations like that where someone tells you something but they can't tell you why they are telling you that specific thing. And so it's like, I've been there before because people need more information to say yes or no or get more confirmation somehow when it comes to those sort of things. So I've been in those situations where it's like, you're giving me only like, it's like not having the whole cake to yourself. It's like, you've given me one slice of this cake, you're not giving me the whole cake. If you give me the whole cake, I would be able to understand. But if you're only giving me the one slice of cake, we can't confirm or deny any of this. So that's kind of one of those things. When the mission stuff started to happen in episode 7, that's where it got interesting. And Nancy and Jonathan, Joyce and Hopper trying to look for the boys in 11, I think was very interesting. And I really liked the scene where they made the salt pool and they basically put goggles with tape over them for 11's eyes, and 11 can just kind of float there in the pool and find out where Will is. That to me was very, very interesting. And of course they do that in the rest of the seasons, but I think that they did a good job of explaining her powers in this season. I think that was very, very good. That whole scene when Steve, Jonathan, and Nancy are in the house and Nancy holds a gun up to Steve and the bloody Demogorgon comes out. That whole scene was bloody terrifying. I was like, what is going on? Jesus! That kiss between 11 and Mike was kind of unexpected to me. I'm hoping the now I have already watched the previous 2 seasons. We'll get into what I think of the building, the more how do I put it? Like how they explore the Mike and 11 relationship, because I can't quibble with it. I think that it's a very interesting relationship, but I think when we get to especially my season 3 review, I'm going to have gripes with that. It's not with Mike and 11, it's with the story that they do with that. But I'll get to that when I review season 3. Episode 8 need a seizure warning, because like the whole scene in the hospital when 11 ran away from the Demogorgon and I mean, not at the hospital, at the school and stuff, and the lights are flashing. I have epilepsy, but I don't have it because of the light thing. Mine's more in terms of, like, me getting sick and, like, temperature stuff. But, like, if I was someone who did get epilepsy because of flashing lights and stuff, I would be very nervous because, like, a good friend of mine who, I'm not going to name names, but a good friend of mine also has epilepsy, and I want to recommend him this show, but I don't necessarily want to anymore because he'll probably have an epilepsy from watching the last episode, and any of the seasons, because we'll talk about the epilepsy kind of stuff in season 2, because I think they do it even crazier in season 2. Not worse, but they do it a lot crazier, where like something especially with Will's character, if you guys have seen season 2, you'll know what I'm talking about that, but there's something with Will's character that is related to the epilepsy side of things, and we'll get to that when we get to season 2. But I will say, back to back having the scene with Hopper and Joyce trying to revive Will is crazy, and I was happy that Will is alive, because if the season was about finding him and he was dead, it's like, well, what's the point? Even though that I'm like, well, obviously he's still going to be alive because he's in the rest of the show. So And I do love the soundtrack. I do love how 80s the soundtrack is. I think that the soundtrack is amazing. I need to give Stranger Things Season 1 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think that this season is good, but it's not a great Season 1, if that makes sense. I'm hoping that the next season is even better. I've heard good things and bad things, but we do get to see the Ghostbusters stuff in Season 2, which I'm excited for. I'm a big Ghostbusters fan, as you guys know. So I'm excited to get into that. So, yeah, so guys, please hit the like button down below if you haven't already. Hit subscribe us with a little bell icon to get notified of future videos that I make. I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.
Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press this bell icon.